Good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Sanjeev Dodia from Action Coach, and this afternoon I'm with Jon Anthony of Adappt.io. Jon, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Sanjeev. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for making the time, Jon. Jon, we're going to get right into it to hear your story. So do you want to kick us off with a bit of who you are, what you do, what your group of businesses are all about, Jon?
Sure thing. So I'm Jon Anthony. I am the original founder of Adappt. Interesting background, at least for me. So at university, I took a degree in nuclear physics, physics specializing in nuclear and electronics. After that, in the 90s, showing my age, jobs weren't that easy to come by in that field. And I ended up going into sales. Which was really interesting for a geek that can't communicate that well. I then went back into the tech side of the world and was broadcast engineer and built broadcast centers, television stations, created TV channels, had an awful lot of fun, ran the first series of Ali G. And at some point decided, you know what, I'd really like to start a company of my own. And at some point you kind of have the idea that you want to do things in your own way and you have a vision for that. So I had that vision, but young family, I wasn't really sure whether starting a company was the right thing to do. And in the end, went for it. Best decision of my life, I would say. Well, apart from getting married and having a daughter and all of those decisions, but career-wise, best decision.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what the business does, what the mission is?
Yeah, so if we're mainly talking, I was sort of mentioning this earlier, we have several businesses. Main business is Adappt. It's a tech development center. We fairly blessed, actually. I think we were giving a talk on how to optimize Drupal at DrupalCon in 2011. We were spotted by the World Health Organization. They said, can you come build as a pilot? We built the pilot. We then ended up building the main system. That system still runs, actually. It's been running for 11, 12 years now. And since then, I think we're somewhere between 30 and 40 projects in for the World Health Organization. Adappt, with the app in the name, the original intention was to build and create mobile apps. But business pulls you in the direction that it pulls you in. I mean, for the first 7, 8 years of the business, we didn't have a salesperson. We lived on incoming business, which meant that our choice of direction was driven by our clients. It was one of the reasons that we did decide to take on a sales team, was so that we could actually choose the work that we wanted to go for it rather than the work choosing us.
Excellent, Jon. And tell me what's the secret to your success? Because you're telling me you exited a business recently. You're invested in other businesses. What's
for us? Everybody has their own strategy. For us, I think it's the concept of business class service, and just to explain that, you have to stand out in one way or another. And so, you know, we're not EasyJet. Nothing against EasyJet or Southwest Airlines or that model. Neither are we first class, because our clients won't pay for first class. But at the same time, we are business class. That means if you want an extra bag of peanuts, if you want a glass of wine, that, you know, we have that factored in. So, you know, I think one of the nicest compliments that we were ever paid by a client was that building a software project with us was enjoyable. And that's not always the case in software development. You know, sometimes for a lot of people, it can be quite frustrating. So I think, you know, we do try to factor that in. We learned that we weren't always that way when we started. We started in a recession and we were trying to be quite competitive, which meant that we tried to cut the cloth exactly. And as a lot of development houses find, scopes tend to slip and people change their minds and then turn around and go, well, you're the experts. We're changing our minds. You should have known that. And so in the end, we decided, you know what? Let's just factor that in at the beginning. Let's put our quotes out and let's do our estimates accordingly. Let's, you know, assume that within reason, people will change their mind and make sure that that's not a painful process.
Okay. And what about your personal strengths or trademark kind of characteristics, you know, as founder and now chairman? Is it chairman now?
Yeah. I'm the ultimate geek, really. I get the rest of the board will take the mickey out of me quite a lot. I like to, I create a content management system in a day. I will build an AI 3D globe on a flight to Washington. So yeah, I'm actually happiest coding, playing around with AI and NLP, but the managing of the people, I have my view on it. My view is to be completely honest with people. I have a very, very straightforward approach to business management, but at the same time, that's probably the part that I personally find the most difficult, is dealing with people.
Great, but you mentioned that you're the geek, so presumably you've been successful in finding the right people to fulfill the other roles.
Fortunately, yes. If you look at JJ, you look at David, you look at Naz, they've got good senses of humor, and I think you really need that, and especially David spends a little bit more time than he should making fun of me. JJ, really good sense of humor. We've kept the friend, as a board, we're also really good friends. I think this month we'll probably all go karting together. JJ and Naz go fishing together quite a lot. David and I will probably go sailing together at some point as well. So yeah, we've kept the friendship. I think having a friendship at a board level makes a huge amount of difference.
Nice to hear. Nice to hear. What John, have been your biggest challenges over the lifetime of your journey as an entrepreneur?
Turning away deals, probably. It's easy to get greedy. It's easy to take on more than you should. It's easy to, there's a lot of work out there. It's easy to take that. There are, if you look at the world right now, there will not be enough for software developers for a good long time. The amount, every new business, every startup, pretty much, and unless it's pure manufacturing, requires some degree of software. Whether it's an online shop, whether it's a complicated SaaS platform, whether it's AI, there simply aren't enough developers in the world capable of doing that. So we live in a developer shortage until AI really kicks in and starts coding. And even then, AI is not scheduled yet to architect for quite a while. There's a lot of work out there. So, there is a temptation as a business to accept everything. And that, you have to be smart enough not to do that.
Okay, great. So choosing what you choose to work on. What are the biggest lessons learned for you?
The lessons out of that are, it's better to do one thing well than 5 things badly. Mm-hmm. The turning away the deals is important, because you're defined very much by the deals that you choose. At the same time, biting off more than you can chew is a really interesting topic of conversation, because we all do it. Whether we're sure or not, we have an ambition. We have a client that has an ambition. Both of those ambitions tend to be quite big. Sometimes we end up with a conversation with a client where we're going, "Ooh, okay, well, are you sure we want to do exactly that?" And that could be their dream. At the same time, inevitably, we often do end up biting off more than we can chew. Somewhere fundamentally, you have to believe that that's possible before you, and we do that. So fundamentally, you have to believe and know that you have a plan for getting through that. You have to realize that you're biting off more than you can chew. If you bite off more than you can chew without even realizing it, then you're heading into difficult water. But if you know that, and you have a strategy and a plan, and you can figure out an architecture and a why and a route, what you often deliver is something quite amazing. There are a few examples. So for example, during COVID, for the World Health, Amazon had taken on getting all the stats from all the countries around the world. And that's a really difficult challenge, because governments produce those stats. They put them on Twitter, they put them in infographics, they put them in emails, PDFs, they do them in their own languages. And 5-6 months into it, Amazon turned around and said, "You know what? Even with our AI, it's not possible. So we'll step back from that, but we'll do it." And the World Health came to us and said, "You're pretty good at this tech. We know you've got a track record. Can you do it?" And they came to us in August. I sat in the meeting and said, "Absolutely, yes, we can do this." 3 months in, was feeling quite painful, by Christmas, we had every country in the planet collecting all of their stats every 30 minutes. So we made it work.
Wow.
I was aware we were biting off more than we can chew, but there were a bunch of strategies ahead of us that I knew would get us there.
Having the conviction, fantastic. Yeah, really good. So what's inspiring you going forward? What does the future look like?
For me personally, so AI was the emperor's new clothes, and now NLP is the emperor's new clothes. And by the emperor's new clothes, every 5 years ago, every company was an AI company. Now most companies are NLP companies. And I was, recently at a conference, a global technical meeting, where most of the companies that stood on stage said, "Oh, we're an NLP company," and they weren't. And at the same time, that's what I want for us. We are heavily into NLP. We've created AI-based lawyer technology. So for one of our clients that goes through your legal document and it works like Grammarly, it lets you know where you've made mistakes. So we have been working in the NLP space for a good 5 years now, and it's massively powerful. Everybody's aware of ChatGPT-4, but it's not the only, it's not the only thing NLP can do. NLP is phenomenally powerful.
You want to spell out NLP for those who are not familiar, John?
Natural language programming. So it's this ability to processing. So it's this ability to interpret text and understand it. This ability to then take that and take actions based on what you interpret. Sorry, I'm being heckled from every direction.
If there were one or two bits of advice you'd have for entrepreneur kind of following the journey you followed, what might they be? Say to
one of my best pieces of advice came from a neighbor over the road, and he runs his own construction company. And I was at that phase where I was umming and ahhing, and I was really trying to consider whether or not to dive in and start a company and kind of, leave the security of a 9-to-5 job. His approach was, I did the knowledge. I used to work as a black cabbie. I didn't really enjoy that job. But when it came to starting my own business, I always knew that I could fall back on being a black cabbie. So for me, I tried to think, okay, what's my emergency fallback scenario? And my emergency fallback scenario was I took a couple of project management courses. I also put myself in a position to be able to freelance as a software developer. And at that point, I kind of felt that if it doesn't work, I have a fallback scenario. I never needed it. He never needed to go back to cabbying again either. But that psychological safety net really helps. So knowing that you've got a safety net is helpful. Everybody says starting the first business is the hardest. You learn an awful lot in terms of accountancy and everything else. From there on, it gets easier, but the safety net's nice. And I mean, one thing, in terms of my former self, I probably would be lovely to let your former self know that everything does work out fine in the end. It's the more you do, the more you can do, the more doors you push out, the more doors open.
That's a great message to end this interview on. John, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Cool. Thank you, Sanjeev.